Hello everyone. So in this video, I'm going to take a look at just talking about 3D printing. Okay, so here's the iris mechanism base that we're going to be using. So some people are sending through files that are quite obviously difficult to 3D print. So I want to take a look at a file. Let's say this driving ring is probably the hardest one here to actually print. So if I isolate this file, you'll see um, so yeah, I want I want to keep these surfaces here, this one and this one good. I don't want them to be good quality, but I also want these ones to be good quality. So the bearings going in here, these ones don't matter so much as long as they don't get too big, but I need these ones to be quite good. So I have to figure out some way of being able to print this. If I export this, so if I click on this to export, and I set my refinement to high, click OK, and put it into a folder. Call that just driving ring 1. And then if we step over to the slicer software and pull in this one, driving ring 1. So now I can see there's really no way that I can put this. So some of these surfaces are not going to be full of support. Okay, so if I just slice this now, and we see this has got support material on it. This should come out okay. The support material has a nice gap, but there will be some support laid down. There will be what we call an interface layer here, this dark green one. This is kind of support layer, and then there's a gap. So there we go. There's the interface layer created, layer 35. Then we have a gap, then another gap, and then we're putting the actual part layer down. So there is, there's opportunities for these surfaces not to be, not for the whole part not to come out too great. And I have had issues with this. It's not been to the quality that I wanted. So let's take a look and see what can we do to make that better. So I've isolated this part. I'm going to find it in the model, and I'm going to roll the history to here, and then I'm going to activate that part. So I'm going to turn on the base and the bearing. And what I want to do is split. So let's just have a look. My plan is this: to make this easier to print. I want, so for this, for printing these, I want this to be the bottom surface. So I want these to be on the top. But when I'm doing this portion of it, these surfaces, I'd like these surfaces to be on the top. So obviously I can't do that when it's in the same part. But what I could do is I could split this straight up. Now, if I split it straight up, then combining the two parts is a little bit problematic. So what I could do is if I bring it up and then I step it in, then I create stepped in features on this side, so I don't need support. And then if this is the bottom for this guy, then I have stepped in features for that side. So let's just take a little screenshot of that so that I can show you what I mean. So if I take this and I go and do this, okay, then for this part, this will be the bottom, okay? So then when it's printing this, then it's going to step in, then it's going to print that, then it's going to step in, print that. This is the only slight overhang here, but that's okay. So then if we go to the other side, when it's printing this, so this is the bottom here, and then it's just going to print this, it's going to step in, print that, and it should print these without any supports and with good quality. So let's try that. So it's an annular piece, it's cylindrical. So I want to I want to split it. I want to take that line and I want to rotate it around. So as I split it into like a number of rings. So let's try and do that. So I'm going to switch off section and we're going to go and create a sketch on this surface here. Okay, just down the middle. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit this little button, slice, and you'll see slice actually slices it on the sketch plane. So this is my origin of my sketch plane. So it takes the sketch plane and just slices all the geometry along it. And the good thing about using this slice command is that if I want to relate my sketch to this vertex, I can select it. Okay, so I can now pick things from that cross section. So let's just sketch in that line. Let's see how it goes. Okay, so we're going to go up. You're going to come in and go up again. Now, I've got one more project that I need to do, which is actually just that top surface. And then I'm going to constrain that. I'm now going to add in a dimension to say, let's make that, I don't know, we could do 2 millimeters maybe. Let's take a look at that and see how it looks. Sorry, there's a bit of noise there. There's a printer going in the background. It's getting rowdy. Okay, so I've created this line. Now I want to, what method can I use to spin that around and then split these in two? Well, if I come over to surface, okay, and then I do a revolve surface, profile, I'm going to select this chain as the profile, okay, then the axis is going to be in the driving ring. Make sure you're in the right part, selecting the right axis. I'm going to select that vertical axis there, the Z, okay, and there we can see it's now created. I can just see the top of it. It's created a surface. So if I click OK there, it's created a surface just so as we can see it. We can now see it here as a surface. Let's just turn that off, the body off. So there's the actual surface. It's got no volume, but it's got area. It's 2D, okay? So it's not a 3D surface. So what I want to do now is I want to use that surface to split this part in two. So if I go back to solid and I go to modify, you'll see split body. Okay, so now I can say split this body. Splitting tools is going to be that surface. Okay, so if you hover over it, okay, what you think is the surface, left click to select it, you're now only going to select, you could just be careful you don't select just the faces. You want to get the full body, the full surface. So once I click that, I click OK. Now I can hide off the body and I can hide off the surface and I can see the two bodies have been created. Okay, so if I look at it, let's get rid of the sketch. If I look at it in a section view, there I can see I now have two bodies. Okay, now obviously I can't live with this line on line. We don't like that. That's not going to work. Okay, so let's hide this body. And this is perhaps one of the only times that I would recommend, well, not the only time, it has its uses, but I'm going to use press pull just to keep the features small, the feature tree small. So I'm going to say minus 0.2 there. And I'm going to do the same here. Press pull, minus 0.2 there. Let's turn that body back on. And now we can see when we press this in. So once we printed this, and we press that down, or we press these two together, this is going to be slightly in clearance, or if we take up our tolerances that it could be meeting, and then these surfaces will butt up together. Okay, the bearing's going to press in there onto the press fits surface, and it's going to be in clearance for the rest of it. So this looks like it's going to work out okay. So let's take a look at this now in a 3D, in a slicer. So just before I do that, let me just pop in, there's the driving ring. So let's just quickly press slice now. And what did we have? We had 3 hours, 22 minutes for it. And we were using 17 meters of filament. All right, so let's just go back. Let's just try and compare. Okay, so now we want to export those. Okay, so let's turn off our section view. Let's activate this back on. Let's pull all the rest of the parts back in. Okay, so let's go utilities, make, let's do the first body. Okay, and we're going to go preview mesh, click OK. And this one, I'm going to call this ring outer. Okay, and we're going to make that one. Preview mesh just to make sure. Click OK. And this one is going to be ring inner. Let's go back. So let's pull these in. Ring inner, ring outer. Okay, so let's move them along. Okay, so this one is sitting perfectly. Nice flat surface to be on. No supports required. This is looking good. This guy, we need to flip this one over. Okay, so now we have no supports required. Everything's stepping in like we described. And let's just move them close enough so as the brim is together. Let's hit slice now. So we can see the brim is joining nicely there and no supports required. The time is only a little bit longer, 3 hours, 23 minutes, and we're actually using less filament because we have no supports. So 15 meters of filament. So that's successful. Okay, that's a good example of how to design parts for 3D printing, for parts where you want to keep in, where you have, what you want to stay accurate. Okay, we want these features. I want this to be nice and clean. I want this one to be nice and clean. I want these features to be nice and clean. Okay, I don't want any problems putting these together, and I want to clean it as little as possible. So arguably, that 10 minutes that it took to do that in CAD, it probably saved me a lot of time afterwards. Okay, and that's the method that I'm using to print those parts. So we can have a look at those when we see the assembly. Okay, so there are, as you can see, let's see now, I've got this frame. This frame, we could do something similar on this frame. Okay, so this frame would be a good example of doing something very similar to that. So we've got, let's see, can I isolate from there? Nope. Okay, so there's quite a lot going on in this frame. And in fact, I printed this in one part and this was the bottom, and it just turned into a nightmare to get rid of supports. This surface was all very poor. So there was a lot that I could have done here to remove a lot of the complexity. Looking at this, I think what I would have done is made this piece here that houses the servo, that mounts the servo, I would have made that separate. And these ones, I would have made these separate. And I would have taken the same approach that we did before, and I would have created a stepped hole in this part and a stepped boss coming off this part, or something similar to that, so as I could just slide these in and then either glue them in place, gluing them in place, or just press fit them depending on how tight the fit was. Okay, so I can see some very small features there. That's okay. It's small, but if it doesn't come out, that's fine. The geometry that I need is there. The rest of this is just clearance. So I wasn't really too bothered if it didn't come out. I could always just pull that off. Okay, so keep in mind the manufacturing method and try to tune your parts to make them easier. Okay, let's take a look at this one. This one was actually quite straightforward. There was no issues. This was designed for 3D printing. Okay, so this is nice flat base. Everything steps inwards. Okay, so there's no overhangs or anything like that. There's no need for any supports. So, there was no problem with that one. Printed first time, absolutely no problem. Okay, so hopefully that was useful. And okay, that's it for now.